morning, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us today for the Project Data Analytics Starter Kit. Great to see lots of people here, and yeah, looking forward to the next hour and going through some really interesting topics. So the purpose of the session today is to kind of introduce you to Project Data Analytics, really explain kind of what it is and demonstrate the potential value, hopefully, to you and your organisation. I think what we want to do today is really explain kind of why we need Project Data Analytics, what we can do with it, and how we can go about that in a really practical manner. And I think the main kind of takeaway I'd like from this session is for people to be really motivated to think about kind of how you can use Project Data Analytics and the next steps in this space over the next few years, whether that's kind of upskilling personally, recruiting and building your kind of Project Data Analytics strategy within your organisation, or developing your kind of roadmap in the future and kind of getting towards the kind of to-be state that you'd like to get to. So in terms of me and who I am, my name is Ben Morris. I work as the head of data science for Projecting Success. So we are a data analytics consultancy, and we also deliver kind of training in project data analytics to help kind of upskill existing project professionals and give them the data analytics skills that they will need as PDA kind of really kicks off and grows. In terms of my roles, so I'm involved within our kind of consultancy business as our, oh, sorry, my slides are skipping there, with regards to our kind of data science offerings. I work as the technical lead for the Project Hacks. This is our community hackathons, and I'll be speaking a little bit more about what the hackathons are a bit later in the session and giving some examples of what kind of challenges we work on in the hacks. And I also work as a tutor on our Project Data Academy, our level 4 apprenticeship that aims to kind of upskill existing project professionals and give them the data analytics skills that they need to help them kind of on their PDA journey. And again, I'll speak a little bit more about the academy and kind of what it does a little bit later on in the session. In terms of the agenda for today, so we're going to start by focusing on what Project Data Analytics is, and obviously that's the focus of the session. So we'll start with kind of explaining what it is and kind of where we see it and where we see it going in the future as well. Secondly, kind of what Project Data Analytics is for, and then kind of the impact it's going to have both on a kind of personal level and also an organizational level. We'll then look at some case studies and go through some practical examples of exactly what PDA currently looks like, and hopefully show some good practice of where it's being applied currently and deployed within project organizations. We'll then discuss some barriers, what's stopping PDA getting implemented within organizations, and there are a number of barriers, so it would be good to discuss kind of the challenges people are facing. Then kind of who PDA is for, and I guess two main areas there to touch on. And then finally, how you can kind of start your journey into project data analytics, how you can start to build those skills and really develop and upskill into kind of the PDA profession. So to start with, kind of what is project data analytics? So this image here is from Crossrail. So this is a few years old now, this image, but it's a really useful image for kind of explaining what project data analytics is and what we as Projecting Success believe kind of PDA is. So every time a project is kind of managed through its milestones, through its stage gates, it creates a huge volume of technical and control information. And this is essentially our data used when delivering a project. Technical information includes things such as requirements, assets, inventory, contract documentation, that sort of thing. It's commonly stored. It's used again to assist with the development of future projects. It's often used for either kind of operating or maintaining the particular project. So in this case, Crossrail. So that information's kind of stored and used quite well in the future, and we make use of it quite well. On the other hand, we have our control information created through the project, which can take the form of things like schedules, financial budgets, could be project reporting, snag reports, risk registers, lessons learned, obviously many other sources of data and information as well. And this is very different to the control information. It's very rarely used again. In some cases it is, but not at all often. And this is what we kind of term as the exhaust plume of data from project delivery. So the data that's created when the project's being delivered, and then it's kind of left, often stored potentially in a kind of cloud server and locked away, and that data is never made use of again. So if we can take this control data and we can start to apply it and learn from historical projects, we can hopefully then apply this across future projects within organizations and industry. And as a community, we can hopefully benefit a huge amount from this data and from the lessons we can learn through looking at kind of past data from projects that we're not currently using. So fundamentally, what we're trying to do is to basically leverage the experience from our portfolio of historical projects and use that to really drive future project delivery performance. And this will help us to be able to drive up productivity, to drive up certainty, and yeah, try and deliver essentially more projects for less in the future. And in terms of what kind of project data analytics isn't, so it's not just dashboards, it's not just kind of BI visualizations. This is a screenshot of a Power BI dashboard. Obviously, there's several other kind of BI tools, so Tableau and Domo, a couple of other popular tools out there. They're really useful tools. They're great for business intelligence. They're great for providing insights and analytics on our data, looking at our historical data and giving us those deep insights to our existing data. But project data analytics is a lot more than just that kind of business intelligence and tools such as Power BI. So I think this slide is quite useful in kind of explaining a little bit more about what we kind of view PDA as from a technical side and more of the analytics side. So PDA really refers to sort of the process of extracting, processing, transforming and manipulating data to help us really understand firstly the reality, kind of what's going on the ground right now, and get a really good picture of kind of the current state. Help us to extract useful insights, inform decision making, and potentially generate predictions about future events. Essentially, it is data analytics applied to project delivery data, and that's what project data analytics is. This diagram on the slide here is is Gartner's Analytic value escalator. I think it's a really useful tool that helps to kind of assess an organization's maturity within data analytics and obviously project data analytics as well. We start towards the bottom on the left-hand side with our descriptive analytics. So this is where this is the analytics where we're really describing kind of what's happened in the past and I guess just understanding what kind of the current state is and getting a good view of kind of where we are currently. We move on to diagnostic analytics, so we're starting to look at kind of why certain things happened in the past and the lessons we can learn from that, from our historical data. And as we move up the kind of data value chain, we get towards the predictive and the prescriptive analytics. So we can start to predict potentially what's going to happen in the future. And then with prescriptive analytics, how can we either make events happen or not happen, and how can we really use our data to help kind of improve performance in the future, essentially. I think most organizations want to reach that kind of top right hand side, the prescriptive analytics. That's where everyone wants to be. But we can only ever get there by really having the proper tools, systems and architecture in place. Without that, we can never kind of strive to reach that kind of right hand side of the chart there. And project data analytics is about helping us kind of build the capability, build the back end tools and processes to be able to get towards that prescriptive analytics. And that's not to say that the descriptive analytics and diagnostic analytics aren't important, because they definitely are, and each of those areas kind of has its place. I guess we just want to strive to move up that data value chain and really incorporate all four of those areas and make use of them in terms of driving future project delivery performance. So what is project data analytics for? So and then secondly, kind of how does it benefit your company, the industry, and your organization, and how can project data analytics help? So this diagram here is the iron law of projects. So this is a diagram by Bent Flyberg and Alex Budsier from the Side Business School in partnership with Oxford University. So they worked with the business school and the university to study a portfolio of global projects. I think in total almost 12,000 projects they looked at. What this diagram tells us is that firstly, looking at that portfolio of 12,000 projects they studied, less than half of those projects finished on budget. So only 47.5% of those projects they looked at finished on budget, which to start with is fairly poor. 1 in 2 of our projects are finishing kind of within the agreed budget at the outset of that project. When we then look at the number of projects that finish both on budget and on time, it's even worse. We're kind of less than 8% of projects now. And then finally, when we're looking at the number of projects that finish both on budget, on time, and within their agreed benefit envelope at the outset of the project, it's 0.5%. So 1 in 200 of our projects are finishing and delivering the agreed outcomes that they kind of promised at the outset of that project. And I guess even worse than this is the fact that this performance hasn't particularly improved over the last 20 years. And yeah, we're really struggling to kind of improve the performance of projects, and this diagram really illustrates that and demonstrates that really well. So it's only by kind of performing advanced data analytics and machine learning methods and really learning from data that we extract from previous projects that we can hope to kind of move the dial and really improve this in the future. And this is only going to happen by really collaborating as a community, really driving the PDA, really driving the PDA process and implementing it across projects, organizations, industries, that we can really hope to kind of change this and start to make improvements in the future as well. And just kind of building on from the iron law projects and taking that a little bit further, people are obviously predisposed to certain illnesses. Some of these may be by DNA and genetics, others may be down to sort of lifestyle choices and decisions we make. Does the same apply to projects as people? So at Projecting Success, we definitely believe it does. We believe that kind of projects are predisposed to particular things occurring, and to kind of further that analysis and research on this portfolio of projects, we've got another table that gives us a little bit more information of those 12,000 projects and helps to kind of highlight a few more of these points. So it gives us a really useful breakdown of this portfolio of projects, and it gives us a clear kind of view of both the cost, schedule, and benefit performance of projects in different sectors. What we can see towards the bottom is that, particularly if we focus on the cost overrun column, the second column here, we can see that some of the, I guess, probably more unique projects around sort of dams, maybe IT, nuclear power, we can see have to have kind of significant cost overruns. Conversely to that, we can see that there's some more, I guess, potentially more repeatable projects, so things like solar and wind power that are being rolled out in lots and lots of cases in a lot higher volume. We can see that the cost overrun in those cases is much lower when we compare to probably quite unique projects like nuclear power. We've got the Olympics, which I guess is a slightly special case because clearly the Olympics, there is no room for any schedule overrun. So obviously the cost overrun in that case is significantly higher because of the hard stop on the schedule for an Olympics focused project. And I guess what this is showing us is that we can clearly see some types of projects are quite clearly predisposed to either overrunning on cost, schedule, or underperforming on their kind of benefits envelope. And we can start to think and I guess hypothesize about some of the reasons for that. This is only giving us a project level view, but it's giving us some quite clear information about that we can kind of use to understand project performance across these different categories. And obviously this is only at a project level. We're not looking at more granular information. With PDA, we can hope to be able to focus and go into more detail and start to understand at a work package and activity level, again, what that kind of predisposition is to cost, to schedule, to benefit, and start to really understand that. And we can start to learn from historical projects and take that forward into the future and yeah, really learn and try and improve the performance of future projects. So what is project data analytics for, and I guess kind of what impact can it have, and also then how does it benefit all of us? So I've got a Mentimeter set up. So we've got a couple of questions here. So I would really appreciate it if people could sign into Mentimeter using this code that appears at the top of the slides. And I think Sophie may be posting the link in the chat in a second, but we've also got a QR code here that will take you directly to the Mentimeter question. And we've only got 2 questions today, but firstly, I just wanted to ask and get some feedback from everyone in attendance about, what their thoughts are on what PDA can fix for you. So we've explained a little bit about what project data analytics is, but it'd be really useful to hear from the audience kind of what they think project data analytics can potentially fix for you. So I'm just going to share, swap screen, and show up the Mentimeter page and see what responses we're getting in. I think we've got a couple already. So firstly, unforeseen expenditures. So I think that's a really good one. Resource allocation, resource management. So I guess resource is quite a common theme there. Reduction on negative lessons learned. So I think what we really want to do is kind of transform lessons learned and really focus on, rather than just writing down our lessons learned, to really learn from the historical data and learn lessons from that historical data, as opposed to just kind of opinions, and yeah, really learn from kind of what's gone on before. We've got resource management coming up again, and capacity, forecasting, lots of really good points here. Early detection of delays. So we've got an example a little bit later that focused on some schedule data and trying to understand features of activities that would potentially cause delays. So yeah, it's a really good point there. Understand repeated mistakes. I like that one. And yeah, stopping those happening again. Cost overruns, forecasting again. Got loads here. Excellent. Thank you very much, everyone, for filling that question in. We'll come on to the second question a little bit later in the session, but yeah, some really good points there. So thank you very much. So I think already, there's so much opportunity for project data analytics and to really learn from that historical data. And what we'd like to do as a community is really drive that forward, to try and change, the culture of using data and learning from what's gone on before. So in terms of the potential impact project data analytics can have, we've got some quotes on this slide. So these quotes have come from a few learners from the Project Data Academy, and as I mentioned towards the beginning, I'll explain later on a little bit more about the Academy in a bit more detail. I won't read these quotes out, but we've got kind of 3 quotes from 3 different organisations and different roles as well. So we've got a learner from Mace who have, they've used project data analytics to, I guess, be able to get insightful and accurate information on their project performance. And I guess the key bit here is for them to be able to trust the current data, to be able to trust the quality of that data, and then to be able to make decisions based on that data. And I guess also to be able to automate some of the manual processes in terms of the extraction of data and the presenting of that data as well. But I think the key really is being able to kind of trust data and then being able to make decisions off the back of that. Our second quote there from one of the learners from CISC. So this is someone who I know quite well, who I've worked with a few times in the past, and they've really used project data analytics and what they've learned through the Academy scheme to basically completely transform their current role, and they're now really focused on driving the adoption of project data analytics within CISC. So they've brought several challenges to the hackathons in the past. They've used that to really drive stakeholder kind of engagement and buy-in internally. And they're now in a place where they can really start to drive the adoption of data analytics within CISC. So that's, really great to see. And then the third quote we've got there is from one of our learners at Kia. And I think the kind of the takeaway from this is that, we want to learn from historical data, we want to apply that going forward, and we want to make decisions off the back of what's happened in the past. And I think it's just worth saying that as the adoption of project data analytics accelerates, then the potential for for roles to be transformed will only increase. It will hopefully help us to and allow people to really focus their time on sort of value-adding activities. It will hopefully start to remove some of the kind of repetitive and mundane tasks that we have to do, and allow people to really focus on where they can add value, where they can add their skills and their experience to help improve the performance of future projects. So the next session we're going to look at is some case studies and then good practice of project data analytics, and we've got some examples from across several different organizations, several different industries that show kind of how project data analytics is currently being used, and some examples of where hopefully it will be used in the future as well. So this slide we've got here is for our next hackathon, which is on the 3rd and 4th of February, so Thursday the 3rd and Friday the 4th of February. So just over 3 weeks' time, I believe. So Project Hack, and I'll explain more in a second, but this will be a face-to-face event. It's at Code Node in London, so it's a really great venue. I've been there quite a few times in the past for various meetups and events, and a conference as well. And it's a great space for the I guess a hackathon type event, and really looking forward to being there. So I guess to explain kind of what Project Hack is. So Project Hack is an event for the project data analytics community. It was founded by Projecting Success about 3.5 years ago now. And you can see by Project Hack 13, we're now on our 13th hackathon. So it's been running for a little while now, and it's starting to mature. The events are for the community, and it aims to bring together project professionals, data professionals, students, and anyone with a general interest in project data analytics to come together as a community and solve challenges within the project data analytics domain. We normally have around 10 challenges, and we'll have teams of roughly 6 people, and we try to put teams together, or we try to encourage teams to form a real mix of backgrounds. And what we find is that by having a mix of complete mix of background and skill sets working on the same challenge, it helps to get really good results. It helps people who think about problems in different ways, who have different experience and different skills, to kind of bring that together to work as a team and focus on solving these challenges and helping to kind of make change and drive innovation, really. It's a 2-day event. So at the first day, we have a kind of presentation. We introduce the challenges, and then the teams will form, and they will work over the 2 days on their particular challenge of choice, and they will then create a presentation at the end of the second day. And a judging panel will then judge the presentations, and prizes are awarded towards the winners. Hack 13 in February is headline sponsored by the Association for Project Management, so it's really great to see some really big organizations kind of getting behind Project Hack and really supporting it. And you can see along the bottom of the screen there some of the other sponsors for the hackathon. So we've got Gleeds, Code Node, Projecting Success, Mplan, the Environment Agency, and Node and Links, who are all supporting the hackathon as well. In terms of tickets for the hack, so they are available through Eventbrite. We've got a QR code on this slide that will take you to the Eventbrite page. And there is also a link, I think, potentially being posted in the chat in a second. But if you do want a link for the event, then please get in contact with me and I can share that with you. And it's also worth saying that there are free tickets available for the PDA Academy members and also for students. And Sophie's email is on the slide, and please get in contact with Sophie if you've got any questions about that at all. So some of the challenges coming up for Project Hack 13, just to give you kind of a flavour of what's going to be there. So we've got a number of challenges, again, hoping for around 10 from across the project delivery supply chain. The types of organisation bringing challenges kind of ranges from government agencies. So, for example, the Environment Agency, TfL, the NHS and National Highways, I think, are all bringing a challenge to the next hack, as well as both main contractors and consultancies as well. The areas we're looking at with challenges include kind of risk and benefit management, resilience and asset management with regards to the TfL challenge, also productivity, error elimination, involving kind of techniques such as natural language processing, machine learning, automation, and sort of data visualization and analytics as well. So there's a real range of challenges of a real range of challenges of kind of tools and techniques that will be involved. And on the Projecting Success YouTube channel, there are various videos of previous hackathons that, and you can have a look at kind of teams that have worked on challenges before, what they've solved. And there's some really good videos that explain kind of what the hack is as well. So that is Hack 13 that's coming up in a few weeks' time. But we'll now go through a few of the kind of hacks that have been in the past and explain kind of some of the challenges that have already been tackled. So Hack 11 was our first in-person event since COVID. So before that, I think March 2020 was the last in-phase project hack. So we had that kind of 18-month period of virtual hackathons during the pandemic. Obviously, we're kind of still in the midst of that, but Project Hack 11 was our first in-person event since COVID. We had about 170 attendees come to Hallam Conference Centre in London. Again, from a complete range of sectors, professional backgrounds, from projects to data to students to people with a general interest in PDA. There was a challenge from the NHS that brought considerable interest, so we'll touch on that in a minute. We actually had 5 teams tackling that same challenge, which was great to see, and developing kind of various different solutions to try and solve that problem. We had a hybrid approach to this hack, so we did have kind of virtual attendees as well as those physically present as well, which again worked well and gave people kind of all around the world essentially the opportunity to attend. And obviously worth mentioning the prizes as well. So the top 4 teams all got a share of the £5,000 prize pot. So that was great to see. Obviously the prize pot is funded by the sponsors, and great to see some of the outcomes that kind of came out the back of that. And I think a real takeaway from me from Project Hack 11 was seeing some of the really senior members of some really senior members of staff from big project organizations in attendance, going around seeing what challenges were being worked on, and to really see that they were really understanding kind of the vision, understanding what project data analytics is about, and really getting a flavour for kind of on the ground what challenges are being worked on and what difference they can really make. So that was a big takeaway for me from Hack 11. So we've got a couple of quotes now from a couple of our sponsors from previous hacks. So from Gleeds, they've mentioned that the hacks have kind of really provided them with a mechanism to help and accelerate their digital transformation, and also their maturity, and kind of create a real buzz. And that's from the global head of data, insights and analytics at Gleeds. We've had, I think, 3 or 4 challenges now from Gleeds, some focused around kind of the cost estimating for projects, which are really interesting. We've also got a quote here from the head of BI and analytics at Jacobs. Again, just mentioning kind of the benefits they've got from the hacks, the kind of the excitement, enjoyment, and the kind of positive energy they're seeing through the hacks and the change that it's driving. Again, we've had several challenges from Jacobs in the past, some looking at revenue prediction for portfolios of projects, understanding delays on projects, that sort of thing. So that's really great to see. This is a screenshot from that NHS challenge from the last hackathon. So this was the winning solution. Excuse me. This challenge was basically around developing a method to kind of connect and correlate different data sources around the NHS's project workforce. So I think the NHS has got around 10,000 project professionals, which is obviously a huge number. Obviously, the NHS itself is a huge organisation. They wanted to be able to create a clear visualization to help them understand the composition of their project workforce, to understand the skills they have available, the professions they have available, and then also the distribution of those professions geographically and kind of split in other ways as well. So in terms of what the team did, they collected obviously the existing data. They created some dummy data for to focus on some other bits that helped them to kind of answer their brief. They identified the different types of project professional, aligned sort of professional membership against each employee, really focused on looking at that geographical distribution and helped to kind of present that information in a really clear to understand manner. We had 5 different teams tackling this challenge, so there were a range of solutions to the challenge presented, which was great to see. And the NHS are now working kind of internally to take this back and actually implement it within the organisation. We've got another example here. This wasn't from the last hack. This was from I think around a year ago. So this was a challenge brought by Costain about developing a cost estimating solution. So I guess this challenge was around kind of improving the efficiency of the cost estimating process by using kind of data analytics tools where possible to try and improve that process as much as they could. So the first part of the challenge involved taking a kind of traditional cost estimating book in PDF form, scraping that information, so taking it out of a PDF structure into a nice kind of tabular format, putting some structure around that information. And then they created a Power App, which is what's shown on the right-hand side, and that was used as a kind of user interface to allow the user to be able to kind of quickly access that information, and then allow them to almost build their kind of shopping basket and build up their cost estimating by selecting different items, different quantities, and building up their cost estimate that way. And I guess the main purpose of this was to try and make that process more efficient, to try and save time where possible, and eliminate sort of redundant effort and do that as best as possible, really. And then just a final example of a previous hackathon challenge. So this challenge came from Baker Hughes about 18 months ago now. And this was the challenge I mentioned earlier. So Baker Hughes wanted to really look at their schedule data, and they wanted to understand what factors within their activities were potentially leading to kind of delays within their both on an activity level and also on a schedule, kind of an overall schedule basis. So the team for this challenge developed a machine learning model focused on their P6 schedule data. And the purpose of the model was kind of twofold. One was to be able to predict the actual duration of a particular activity based on various factors such as the activity type, the department, the time of year, and other information they had. And then secondly, to give an insight into what features of an activity would potentially cause it to be delayed. So, for example, would it be that activities starting over the winter months were maybe more predisposed to delay because of bad weather, as a kind of hypothetical example? So they provided Baker Hughes with a model that kind of outperformed the existing planning approach, and also gave them a really good insight into what those factors were that were potentially or that were causing delays on activities. So again, another really interesting challenge, very different to the other two, but there were some real actionable insights kind of developed through this hackathon challenge that Baker Hughes could kind of take away, and they could start to learn about and incorporate into their planning in the future. So hopefully that gives a little bit of an idea of what Project Hack is. 3 very different challenges there. We've got about 10 challenges lined up for the next hackathon, as I mentioned, from a range of different organisations. And if you'd like to talk about the hack in more detail, then please send me a message, and I'd be happy to talk about that. So we're now going to look at touch on an example of an automation solution. So this isn't from a hackathon. This is a kind of separate automation solution, and just to give another example of a case study of project data analytics and how it's being used to, in this case, try and streamline a particular process and make it more efficient. To allow people to focus on where they can really add value rather than doing the kind of mundane, repetitive work that can be automated by some of the tools that we have kind of readily available. So the purpose of this solution was to, I guess, streamline the process of receiving materials on site, knowing what materials and order items we've received, and then being able to quickly get that information to the buying team to be able to pay an invoice accurately, and only pay for the items that we've actually received. So the brief that was kind of given was that often, it's a very manual process. When an paper order confirmation arrives with a delivery, it's the items that arrived have got to be written up manually. They're then typed up into a spreadsheet. They're emailed over to the buying team with incomplete descriptions. The buying team don't know kind of what's been delivered, and they don't really know what's actually arrived on site. So they'll pay the invoice without actually knowing if they've received the items or not. So this process aimed to kind of automatically extract that information from order confirmation PDFs using Python deployed on a cloud server. The automation process would firstly extract that information from a PDF order confirmation into a nice structured tabular form, save it in a centralized place that everyone could access. And then this application was developed to allow a user to quickly kind of log in, access the particular site they were working on, access particular deliveries, and be able to quickly tick off the items that had been delivered on site, to save it, and then to generate an automatic email to the buying team that would allow them to purchase. To pay that invoice and know exactly what arrived on site, to know if some things we'd only received a certain quantity for, to add any comments if there was any damages or something like that, and essentially to speed up that process and really try and streamline it as far as possible. Sorry, I jump off that slide. So just another example of a PDA case study, how it's being used to kind of streamline a business process, to remove those sort of repetitive activities and hopefully allow people to focus on where they can really add value and really focus on it kind of improving that. So we're now going to touch on some of the tools that will be involved in kind of project data analytics, and there's a huge range here. This covers a subset of those. For all of these tools, there's probably 10 other very similar tools that will do a very similar job as well. But just to touch on a couple and explain in a little bit more detail about how you can kind of start to use them and what these tools can start to do for you. So some of the tools we've got here. So we've got Power BI, which we touched on before, which I'm sure a lot of people are very familiar with for sort of business intelligence and creating data visualizations. We've got Python, which is a programming language, and we'll explain about this in a little bit more detail in a minute, and what you can do with Python and some of the use cases of that. On the previous slide, we saw an example of a Powerapps, so that's a kind of a low-code application to give you a sort of user interface to capture data, to streamline processes, to kind of interact with data in a nice, friendly way. We've got Power Automate for kind of automation. And then we've got some of our database tools here. Scikit-learn, which is a Python module for machine learning and AI, and obviously several other areas as well. And I guess I'd just kind of caveat this by saying that PDA isn't all about the tools. It's really about how data is being used, how we're approaching problems within the project delivery space with regards to data. But the purpose of this is to explain a little bit about those tools and kind of what they look like. So we're going to focus on just a subset of those tools. Obviously, we've not got loads of time today, so we're just going to focus on the Microsoft Power Platform, so Power Automate, Power BI, and Python, Powerapps, sorry, and then also Python, and explain what Python is, and then how they relate to the role of a project data analyst and how they can be implemented. So to start with, we'll start by talking about Python, just to kind of introduce in a little bit more detail kind of what it is and how you can get started using Python. It's a really accessible programming language, and I guess to start with, I'd really like to challenge the I guess probably quite a common view that programming is really for computer scientists, and I know if you're not familiar with it and you've never used Python before, it can seem quite scary, quite daunting to start with. With the it does have quite a kind of shallow learning curve with the vast array of online resources available, the training programs that people can sign up to. It's now sort of easier than ever to start on that journey. It's open source, it's free to use, so it doesn't cost anything to get started with, which is great as well. And it's a real general purpose language that helps you to, you can do many different things with Python and really get started with. So if it's something you're, I guess, daunted by and it's something you're interested in, then I'd really encourage you to have a go at learning Python, because once you've, kind of got over that, I guess that initial kind of daunting looking at learning how to code, it can be quite easy to kind of pick up and develop. Clearly, it takes a lot of time to get really good with, but it is something that's definitely possible and open to everyone, I'd suggest. In terms of what we can use Python for, so there's a huge number of use cases.
Oh, you've muted yourself again.
Thank you very much. Sorry, was I muted for long, or was that?
Not too long.
No, it's only a couple of minutes.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
If that-
Sorry.
Just because the use cases.
Sorry, I think my headphones are playing up slightly. Apologies for that. So in terms of Python, so it can be used for lots of use cases. So firstly, developing desktop applications. So it can be used to develop executable files that can be run on to do whatever you want really. You can build websites using Python. It's probably not the go-to tool for that, but it is possible. Definitely. A big area that Python's being used for currently is building and deploying machine learning models. So we saw an example of that through the Baker-Hughes Hack Challenge. They use Python to develop that machine learning model using the scikit-learn library. We're going to touch in a second on an example of automation with Python and how it can help to kind of speed up any processes and automate processes for you. And then some other examples as well. So it can be used for building games. But I guess, yeah, quite a big learning curve to get to that point. But really what we're focusing on would be things like cleaning data, analyzing data, and really working with data. And again, we'll touch on some examples of that in a second. So in terms of an example of kind of automating with Python, so this here is we've got a few screenshots here, but a really good example of how Python's used for automating processes. Through the Project Data Academy, we're seeing lots of examples of this type of thing being used to save a lot of our learners significant amounts of time by automating something that they'd have to do on a daily or weekly basis. And yeah, essentially just save them time and allow them to focus on more important things. The purpose of this is to and the example, kind of the typical example this was focused on was around someone being sent Excel or CSV files on a daily basis of subcontractor hours worked on a project. To be able to turn this into something that's usable, something that you can kind of analyze, report on, that you can work with, that you can use to understand sort of trends, maybe peak working days, that sort of thing. It needs to be aggregated into a single kind of structured data source that can be worked with to allow you to get those insights and extract that information. To do this manually would need to be repeated regularly. It would take maybe just doing it once wouldn't take a lot of time, but if you've got files every day, it's a task that needs to be repeated on a very regular basis. It can take a lot of time. It's open to mistakes because we're probably copying and pasting from different files, and files can be overwritten, that sort of thing. So it's definitely open to kind of human error as well. This is an example of how we can use Python. So we can use Python to open up a series of files to combine them, to aggregate them really easily into a single usable structured data source. Once we've created that Python script to do that, it can be run locally. We can do it with a click of a button, and it will work away in the background for us and do that process for us. And I've seen lots of examples of different types of file where this has been implemented. Some example we've got here was there was a good one at the start of the pandemic around the numbers of workers on a site, and one of our learners from a main contractor was involved in managing kind of limits of people on a site. So they needed to track the number of workers from each subcontractor on a daily basis on particular sites. And obviously to do that, they were sent the information on a daily basis, but they needed to aggregate that into a single central source that they could then work with and extract those insights from. They did that using Python. It's saving them time every day, and a really obvious example of how this type of thing can be used. Throughout the hackathons, we use Python a lot. So there's probably two main cases that Python's used in terms of preparing for the hackathon itself. So we've actually got, I think we've got a video on the next slide here that shows. So as part of the material you're given when working on a hackathon challenge, you're given a PowerPoint presentation that gives you a bit of information about the challenge. So the title of the challenge, the user stories we're trying to solve, a detailed description from the challenge owner about what they want to achieve through the hackathon, some information about the data, about the benefits, and about the kind of desired output of that challenge. This data is collected centrally in an Excel format, where we can work on it collaboratively, and the team developing the challenges can work to kind of edit the descriptions, write them up, sense check them, that sort of thing. Once they're created in that kind of structured format, they're then put into PowerPoint presentations, which are given out to the teams working on the challenge, and the team will take that PowerPoint presentation, which you'll see in a second, and they'll look at that and they'll use that to get the information they need to kind of work on the challenge. So the video you've just seen there is an example of a Python script that's run in the background. It's automatically generated these PowerPoint presentations that look a little bit like this. From a central data source, it's generated those, I think, 12 or 13 different PowerPoint presentations automatically. It saves us lots of time because it's a quick click of a button and it creates these presentations for us. It doesn't involve someone copying and pasting that information into 12 different documents, again, with potential for human error, for mistakes to be made. So it's really useful for that sort of thing. Another example through the hackathons is using it for kind of the preparation of data, whether it's the cleaning of data to deal with data quality issues or the removal of particular sensitive bits of data, that type of thing, is another example of how Python's often used for those type of things. And just a final example of kind of the use of Python. So we can use it to another automation example. In this case, the Python's been used as almost like a horizon scanner type tool. So it's looking on the web. It's using the beautiful soup library, which allows you to access kind of various websites and news feeds. And Python's going away, essentially working as a bot in the background to go and collect different news articles, to aggregate those, to filter those, and to return relevant information to you. An example we've got through the Project Data Academy that I'll mention in a second is that as part of that, we need to provide our learners with information around British values and prevent, and really encourage them to kind of consume that information. So we have an automated a piece of Python automation that will go away. It will collect that information. It runs every Monday morning and it presents that information to the learners in a really clear to understand way, which is just another example of how Python's being used to kind of automate and save time. So we'll just touch briefly on the other areas, so Power BI, Powerapps, and Power Automate, and just a couple of examples of what those tools can do and how they can be used. So Power BI is a really good tool for data visualization. I mentioned it a couple of times already, and it's probably something that many people are familiar with. This is just a screenshot of an example Power BI dashboard, but it's a great tool to be able to kind of provide business intelligence solutions, and also to be able to analyze data, to visualize it and really interrogate it in a lot of detail. And you've got a lot of flexibility over the types of visualizations that you can produce and the type of data you can consume. There's two main elements to Power BI. So there's a desktop application that you can download, and that's what's most commonly used. That's how you build your dashboards. That's how you import your data and sort of model your data and present it in a way that you can really understand and also analyze and interpret it. And then secondly, we have the Power BI service, which is essentially a website where dashboards can be published. They can be shared within the organization, so we can share, you can share dashboards to particular departments or particular areas of your organization. And they can also be shared publicly if it's public information that you'd like to kind of share around. Within Power BI itself, there's kind of two main features, two main programming languages. So we've got firstly kind of DAX and Power Query. So these are the two main sort of programming languages behind Power BI. DAX is used mainly for kind of quick calculations, creating new columns, that sort of thing. And Power Query is used a lot more for the back end sort of data processing, setting up a data pipelines to really prepare your data from its source system into the format that you want. And then I guess what's really useful about Power BI is the connectors here. So there's a screenshot, it's probably the biggest screenshot on this slide here. This just shows some of the sort of data sources you can use with Power BI. And this really is a snapshot of the kind of total number of connectors you can use. And what we mean by connectors is just ways to connect different sources of data. So whether it's different files, so it could be Excel, it could be a CSV file, a JSON file, a PDF, for example, It could be online data sources. So is your data in SharePoint in an Excel file? Is it in a SharePoint list? Have you got it saved in a SQL database, an Oracle database, IBM? There's hundreds and hundreds of connectors, and yeah, most places where your data is, you'll be able to access it through Power BI and be able to visualize that information. And I think another big area that Power BI connects to is various different APIs. So there's an example here of the coronavirus API that has daily information on coronavirus statistics for the UK. It's been used several times in Power BI to quickly connect to that API to access that information, and then Power BI can be refreshed on a daily basis to get the latest information and visualize that to you. Again, in an automated manner, saving you time and giving you really clear kind of insights and analytics. So just to quickly touch on Powerapps, we've seen an example of Powerapp in that materials receipt process. But essentially what Powerapps is a way to develop kind of business applications, to develop that user interface in a really low code, almost no code manner. So if you think of a typical kind of web application, it will use a lot of, there will be a lot of code. It will be very complicated, the kind of technicalities behind the development of that application. Powerapps is great because it's a low code solution, and what we mean by that is that it's got a nice user interface, and we can actually develop apps in a fairly simplistic way. It's done through the browser, through the Powerapps kind of user interface in the browser, and you can do a lot of it without putting in a single line of code, which makes it great. It makes it quite easy to learn, and means anyone can do it. I'm by no means a developer, but managed to kind of teach myself how to use Powerapps without any kind of previous experience. It's definitely possible to kind of have a go with and learn, which is great. A quick example here of a particular type of Powerapps. This was developed to help try and track progress across a construction site. So the purpose of this, and this is a mobile app, and you can also develop kind of tablet apps as well, was to essentially have a QR code scanner. You'd have QR codes around your construction site. You would use the application to scan those QR codes and then record progress on a particular location with particular activities. This app would kind of provide a way to capture that information nice and quickly. It's easy to use, and it will give you the information in a nice, clean structure, so that it can be worked with and really interrogated afterwards as well. And then just finally, in terms of the tools, and then we'll just touch on the barriers and kind of how you can get involved as a final few minutes. Just finally, in terms of the tools on Power Automate, and I'll be quick on this, but it's, as it kind of suggests, it's an automation service. Again, it's from Microsoft, and it's again quite low code and easy to use, and it allows you to automate kind of fairly simple processes. So there's a few examples here. So it could be that you're reminding team members to submit their expenses, notifying you if your company's mentioned on social media. We use it internally for generating initial contracts. So we have a Microsoft Word contract template, and we can use Power Automate to automatically populate the particular details for that particular contract, and then issue that contract to where it needs to be issued. You can also use it to update things like Excel files and tables in Excel and that sort of thing. So it's really useful for kind of those small business processes, being able to kind of automate those in a fairly easy to use manner. Again, you can schedule your flows to run according to particular triggers or time or whatever it may be as well. There's a couple of screenshots here of the Power Automate process. I think this slide is probably better to show that. And this is an example of the contract population. So it takes a template Word contract. It takes information from a structured form in Excel, and it populates, uses Power Automate to populate that contract with the particular details. Again, it's a kind of manual process. It's similar to the PowerPoint example earlier, of how you can use tools to quite quickly and easily sort of automate that process, and save you lots of time and effort that can be better spent on kind of more value-adding tasks. So I guess a very quick overview, and I know we've not got loads of time left, but a very quick overview of some of the kind of key tools in the sort of PDA toolkit. Obviously, there's lots of others out there as well, but just a quick example of a few of the tools that are available. So now just to touch kind of quickly on some of the barriers that exist with regards to the adoption of project data analytics and how it can be used and adopted within organizations. So the purpose of this slide is to try and encourage you to not start with the data that you've got and really focus on the problem that you're trying to solve, and then off the back of that problem and really understanding that problem to then understand what data you need to be able to solve that problem, and to either use data you've got to, that you've already collected, or to go and collect the data that's required to solve that problem. What we see quite often is that people have access to certain data sets and they will try and do what they can with the data that's available. And in reality, it's not really solving the problem that they want to solve. So the purpose of this slide is to really encourage you to start with the problem you want to solve, and to then go away and collect the data that you need to solve that particular problem, and kind of move forward from there. And this slide here just has a few, I guess, phrases containing some of the kind of key barriers that we've seen as an organisation with regards to the adoption of project data analytics. And I'll focus on a couple of these. Obviously, you can read them all here. I think a big one is around the siloed and unconnected data. So I've seen kind of several examples, and lots of this is through preparing hackathon challenges, through consultancy projects, through teaching on the academy as well. I've seen several examples of, and I guess it's part of the project nature of organizations, that you have a particular person in charge of, for example, the cost information for that particular project. They will record the data according to a particular template they've got in Excel. Someone else working for the same organization on a different project will do it slightly differently. Again, it will be an Excel template. They won't kind of talk to each other. They can't be aggregated. And that's a big barrier to the adoption of PDA, because we can never kind of truly understand data across projects if we're using sort of different templates and different data structures, and storing data separately across different projects. Obviously, data quality is a big one and talked about a lot. I think another important one is around the lack of a kind of a clear data model, or a clear data, sort of design of a data model. There's various information standards that exist in the kind of project space. I guess ISO 19650 is quite a common one with regards to the I guess kind of particular naming conventions and information standards across various aspects of particularly construction projects. Without a clear kind of information standard implemented, it's really hard to be able to aggregate data, to be able to have a clear data model and a clear data model design. So having those clear information standards and structures in place will allow you to do that. I think everyone being too busy is a really important one. I know project organizations and people in project organizations struggle for time. It's something I hear almost daily, that there's just not time to kind of innovate and improve. And it's definitely a lot of pressure on people. And I think the pandemic's only sort of added to that as well. And then at the bottom, we've got no high level buy-in. And I think this is something I really saw at the Project Hack 11. So the hack in October time, was that there were kind of several high level stakeholders actually at the hack. They were seeing what was going on in the room, and they were actually kind of understanding PDA and starting to get the vision and seeing what it actually kind of entailed. So I think that point at the bottom is definitely starting to change. There is starting to be that kind of high level buy-in to project data analytics, but clearly there's a lot of investment required to get to where we want to be. So again, there's sort of barriers there as well. Obviously, there's lots of others as well, but just to touch on a couple that are quite important there. So finally, in terms of who is project data analytics for, and kind of how can you get to the state that you need to be. And I know we're at 1 o'clock, and the webinar was an hour, so I'll probably be another 10 minutes or so. So apologies for slightly overrunning. But in terms of who is project data analytics for, so we've got kind of two options. So we've got option one, excuse me, where you're kind of in management. You're here because you need to create that data strategy and really help your organization get along the road towards project data analytics. And then secondly, the option two of wanting to be able to kind of react to where PDA is going, wanting to upskill and really develop your own skills to be able to kind of move with the PDA community. So to start with option one and needing to put that kind of data or project data strategy in place. This is all about kind of preparing firstly understanding what is your kind of as-is state with regards to sort of data analytics. Where is your organization currently? What the challenges you're currently facing with regards to project data analytics? What's stopping you doing what you want to be able to do? And then kind of moving towards that to-be state. So that kind of lamp on the hill and, really where you want to get to and what do you want to achieve with project data analytics. And only when you've got that can you really start to develop a roadmap to get to where you want to be. Obviously, there's some key things to think about. Obviously, the funding and being able to fund that journey. I think a really important one is the sponsors and champions. So being able to find those people within your organization that firstly are going to sponsor this kind of PDA vision and then also the kind of the champions who are going to help to really promote it, to really drive it forward and really encourage what we're trying to do. And then there's some other areas. So I think the skills is quite important. So how are you going to make sure that your organization has the skills required to deliver this vision? And then finally, in terms of the tools and the architecture, how can you put in place the tools and the systems to be able to deliver this vision, and how can you put in place the sort of the systems and the architecture to get towards the top end of that data analytics value chain? So how can you get towards the predictive and the prescriptive analytics, which is where we really want to get to drive future project performance. In terms of influencing people, obviously this is really important. There's always going to be people that don't, that they don't understand the vision, they don't agree with it, and that's fine. But I guess a important part of this is being able to sell the vision, being able to show where you want to go, and being able to show the benefits of using project data analytics and using that within your organization. So there's a few really key points here around kind of creating that argument for change. And also I think competing with other priorities is important, and being able to show how PDA can actually help with other priorities. So if a big priority of the organization is kind of net zero, which I know is a huge focus at the moment, how can PDA help you to get there? How can it free up resource and time in other areas and really help you along that journey? And obviously overcoming kind of objections, challenges, and encouraging others to kind of come with you on the journey. And then just a third point to think about, and not to go into detail, but to kind of consider the approach you take to data analytics. So do you want a sort of centralized approach to data analytics? Do you want a sort of federated approach, or do you want some kind of hybrid role? What we mean by centralized is if you think of your kind of typical IT team and having your data analytics function contained within a central structure, being kind of held centrally within the organization. With a federated approach, obviously you've got your project data analytics within the various aspects, the various business units, implementing data analytics. What I would recommend personally is a kind of centralized approach. I think, a blended approach. I think you need some kind of centralized function for the core areas, the security of your data, managing the core infrastructure and pipelines. But you need to have these hybrid roles on the right-hand side. You need to have the domain experts who really understand the different areas of your business, whether it's project management, whether it's engineering, whether it's cost, schedule, document controlling. You need to have those people that understand that domain, and also have the data analytics knowledge, the data literacy to be able to implement data analytics within their own business units. So I think a blended approach is kind of the way to go. You need that support from a central team that help to set up the infrastructure, the architecture, and the tools, and then you need the domain knowledge from those individual business units to really drive analytics in that federated way. And there's organizations doing different things with regards to this. There will be people that think very differently, but in my personal opinion, I think that blended approach is kind of the way to go that helps you kind of ensure you balance the best of both worlds. And then just finally, I know a few people are dropping off and have to disappear at once, so do apologise for slightly overrunning. It's just how you can kind of start your journey into project data analytics. So I guess there's kind of two options. So firstly, we've got our kind of experimentation, looking at things like YouTube, Udemy, the kind of online courses and MOOCs, online forums like Stack Overflow, which is really useful for kind of coding and fixing problems, that sort of thing. And then we've got at the bottom the kind of the strategic and committed, I guess, kind of real investment in your development, looking at structured training courses, data access and tools, and kind of where you go in terms of getting involved in project data analytics. In my opinion, I think if it's something you're really invested in, you need to follow that kind of structured training. You need to be really strategic about what you're trying to do and really focus your time to be able to give you the skills that will help kind of shape your career for kind of several years to come. There's definitely place for tools. YouTube, I love for learning, particularly Stack Overflow is great. I would 100% encourage people to use those, but I think it needs that kind of structured training in place to be able to really give you the skills, teach you the best practice, show you how to use the tools. And then you've got lots of resources out there to help you focus on individual areas where you want to really grow as well. So just to mention the Project Data Academy, so I mentioned it a few times, but just to explain a little bit about what it is. So this is a 12-month training scheme focused in project data analytics. It gives you a qualification, which is a level 4 apprenticeship in data analytics. But I guess the purpose of this scheme is to really teach you those data analytics skills and techniques with a project focus on it. So to teach you those skills with relation to project delivery, going through particular kind of examples of how it's being implemented in industry, teaching you the best practices to really implement that in the best way possible. So the course is taught by PDA experts. So my boss, our CTO, is our kind of the course architect for the Project Data Academy. I teach various parts of the apprenticeship, particularly the machine learning sections. We have our senior data analyst taking bits of the course as well. It's either 95% or 100% funded by government. So if your organisation is levy paying, then it will be 100% funded by the government. And if you're an SME and you're not paying the levy, then it's 95% funded by government, which is obviously great. Often we find that levy is not being used, so it's a great way to get essentially free training that you're already kind of paying for, and to be able to use that to help accelerate your project data analytics kind of journey without having to fork out a lot of money to kind of train your team to sort of upskill and develop their knowledge. And I think one of the key points to say with this is that although it is an apprenticeship, to really focus on kind of the age range of the learners currently. So this, while it is an apprenticeship, it's really aimed at upskilling existing project professionals to give them the data analytics skills they need to be able to implement project data analytics. So it's not about starting an apprenticeship as you leave school, although, you know, if that's the people are on it, then that's completely fine. But it's also about, you know, the existing people who have serious domain knowledge, who have a lot of experience within the project profession, to be able to pick up a completely new skill set, really understand both, and translate sort of both their project knowledge and their data knowledge, and become that kind of expert in the two areas. If you want any more information about the Project Data Academy, then I've got my LinkedIn details on the last slide, so please connect with me and get in touch, and I'd be happy to kind of speak about it a bit more and go into a bit more detail about kind of what's covered in the course. But all of the tools we've kind of mentioned today are covered in detail in the course, through sort of a lot of practical and worked examples, going through various case studies within the project data analytics space. And obviously there's various tools here that we've not mentioned today that are also included, that are included as well. The cohorts for the academy start every 2 months. So the next cohort is starting at the end of this month, in about 2 weeks' time. So if you do want to sign up for the end of this month, then please get in contact with either myself or Vicky, who is our head of learning and development, whose email is on that slide as well. And we'll be happy to talk to you about it in a bit more detail and explain a lot more about the course. Just as a final slide, for those people who haven't had to kind of dash off at one, I'd be really interested to just get some immediate feedback. So again, on the Mentimeter, just second question on there. It's just to understand what, based on the presentation today, based on the webinar, what will you do now? So in terms of the upskilling and developing your skills and knowledge, where do you feel like you are in terms of kind of learning, upskilling and developing your skills? So I'll just flash up the Menti for a second, and then we've just got a final kind of slide there as well. So if I just jump on to the next one. So we've just got 3 options in terms of, kind of what will you do now off the back of this. So kind of firstly, nothing data analytics, project data analytics doesn't really affect me. It doesn't kind of fit in my space. Secondly, looking at, kind of the ad hoc training, looking at YouTube, looking at Udemy, other MOOCs, and picking up those skills. And then kind of finally looking at sort of the strategic and committed training. So as an example, the Project Data Academy, and kind of using that approach to really drive your upskilling and your learning as well. So that's great to see that definitely people interested in kind of learning and development. So that's really great to see. Thank you for filling that in. Sorry, let me just go back to the slide. So just a final slide from me. So if you would like to speak about any of these topics in a bit more detail, then please connect with me. If you want to just connect on LinkedIn, and then that would be great as well. My details are on the slide. My email's there as well, and a QR code to my LinkedIn there. So please take a shot of that. If you'd like to speak about the hackathon, the apprenticeship, project data analytics in general, then please get in contact with me, and I'll be happy to speak about that in some more detail. And if you are interested in the Project Data Academy scheme, then there is a final question on the Mentimeter slide that asks you if you'd like to leave your email or your contact number. So if you would like to be contacted about that, then please leave your information on there as well. But otherwise, thank you very much, everyone, for your time today. Apologies that we overran by 15 minutes. But yeah, thank you very much for your time, and hopefully it was a useful session.